Single dad janitor blew bubbles to calm a girl in crisis. Unaware her billionaire mom was watching, Ethan Cole never imagined his life would come to this. A former engineering student turned single dad, he now worked nights as a janitor at the upscale Crestwood Academy. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid enough to keep food on the table for his 6-year-old daughter, Lily, every night as he mopped the marble floors. He carried one secret weapon in his pocket, not for cleaning, but for surviving parenthood. A tiny bottle of bubbles. He always carried them for Lily. Whenever the world got too loud or scary, bubbles were their silent language, a way to bring her back to calm. One Thursday evening, while scrubbing near the east wing of the school, he heard soft sobs echoing down the corridor. He put down his mop and followed the sound. In the corner of the music room sat a little girl, no older than 8, knees tucked to her chest, her small body trembling. "Hey there," Ethan said gently, crouching low so he wouldn't scare her. "Are you okay?" The girl flinched and shook her head, tears streaking her face. Ethan didn't push. He recognized the panic in her breathing. Lily had the same meltdowns when her anxiety took over. He reached into his pocket, pulled out the tiny bottle, and popped the cap. Without saying a word, he blew one soft stream of bubbles into the dim room. They floated, shimmering under the light, catching the girl's attention. Her sobs slowed, another bubble, then another. The girl's eyes widened. A tiny, tentative smile broke through her tears as she reached out and popped one. "That's better," Ethan said softly. "You know, bubbles are magic. They carry worries away when they pop. Want to try?" The girl nodded, wiping her face as he handed her the wand. Slowly, she blew her first bubble, giggling when it landed on his nose. Neither of them realized they weren't alone. At the door stood a woman in a sleek black coat, her expression unreadable. Her eyes, however, were glistening. She had been searching for her daughter for 20 frantic minutes after a heated meeting went wrong, and the girl had run off. "Clara," the woman whispered. The little girl turned. "Mommy." She ran into her mother's arms. Ethan stood awkwardly, suddenly aware he was just a janitor standing in front of someone clearly far above his world. The woman looked at him, still holding her daughter. "You calmed her," she said softly. "No one else can, not even her therapists." Ethan rubbed the back of his neck. Sometimes, kids don't need big answers, just little bubbles. A small laugh escaped her lips. "You don't know who I am, do you?" He shook his head. "I'm Amelia Grant," she said. The name hit him. Billionaire, philanthropist, tech mogul, one of the most powerful women in the city. "And you just did more for my daughter in 5 minutes than anyone has in years." Ethan shrugged. "I'm just a dad who cleans floors." Amelia studied him for a long moment. Then she said the last thing he expected. "Not anymore, you're not. I want you to come work for me. Clara needs someone like you in her life." Ethan blinked. "Work for you? Doing what?" "Whatever you want," she said, smiling. "But I think we just found Clara's new full-time hero." And just like that, the single dad janitor, with a pocket full of bubbles, stepped into a future brighter than he ever dreamed, unaware that a simple act of kindness had changed not only a little girl's life, but his own forever. Ethan Cole had gotten used to quiet nights, the kind of quiet that came after the last bell of the day, when the hallways of Crestwood Academy emptied, and only the hum of the cleaning machines filled the air. It wasn't the life he had dreamed of. Years ago, he'd been on track to finish an engineering degree. But when his wife walked out, leaving him with a 2-year-old daughter and a mountain of debt, his plans changed overnight. Now, 4 years later, he was a janitor with calloused hands, tired eyes, and one reason to keep going: his little girl, Lily. Every night, he tucked a small bottle of bubbles into his pocket before work. It wasn't for him, it was for her, Lily's. Anxiety could flare up in an instant, and bubbles had become their secret weapon. They were magic in a bottle. A promise that no matter how bad things got, they could stop and breathe. Tonight, though, the bubbles would save someone else. Ethan was mopping near the music room when he heard it, a soft, muffled crying. At first, he thought it was just the pipes. But as he stepped closer, the sound grew sharper, heartbreaking. He pushed open the door slowly. In the corner, curled up on the floor, was a little girl, 8 years old, maybe 9. Her fancy school uniform was wrinkled, and her small shoulders shook as she tried to hide her sobs. Ethan set the mop down and crouched. "Hey, there," he said gently. "Are you hurt?" She flinched but shook her head, her face buried against her knees. "Okay," he whispered. "You don't have to talk, but I can sit with you if you want." No answer. Ethan reached into his pocket and felt the familiar shape of the bubble bottle. He hesitated for a second, then smiled to himself. He popped the cap and blew a single stream into the air. The bubbles floated across the quiet music room, catching the light from the window. The girl's sobs hiccuped into silence. Her eyes peeked over her knees, following the glistening orbs as they drifted. Ethan grinned. "You know what's cool about bubbles? When they pop, they take a little bit of your worry with them. Want to try?" The girl sniffled and nodded. He handed her the wand. With a shaky breath, she blew. A single bubble wobbled into the air and popped against Ethan's nose. She let out the tiniest giggle. "There it is," Ethan said softly. "That's the sound we were looking for." Neither of them knew they were being watched. At the door stood a woman in a black coat, her heels clicking softly as she stepped in. Her eyes shimmered, relief and awe mixing together. "Clara," she whispered. The little girl's head shot up. "Mommy." She bolted into the woman's arms. Ethan stepped back, suddenly very aware of how out of place he looked. Worn work, boots, janitor's uniform, and a bubble wand still in his hand. "I'm sorry," Ethan stammered. "I just found her crying. I didn't mean to." The woman shook her head quickly. "No, you don't understand. Clara hasn't let anyone near her when she has one of her episodes. Not even me." Ethan shrugged awkwardly. Sometimes kids don't need big answers, just little things. He held up the bubble bottle. The woman's lips curved into the smallest smile. "You don't know who I am, do you?" Ethan shook his head. "I'm Amelia Grant." His stomach dropped. He knew that name. Tech billionaire, philanthropist, the kind of person whose name was on buildings. I'm just the janitor," he said quietly. Amelia looked at him for a long moment, then down at the bubble wand in his hand. "You're not just anything. You're the first person who's ever calmed my daughter without medication or therapy." Clara peeked out from her mother's arms. "Can he come back, Mommy?" Ethan blinked. "I don't." Amelia's voice cut in, soft but certain. "You work here?" "Yes." "Not anymore. I want you to come work for me." He stared at her. "Work for... You doing what?" She smiled, her eyes glistening as she held her daughter. "Whatever you want, but mostly being the man who taught my little girl how to breathe again." For the first time in years, Ethan felt something he thought he'd lost, hope and all. It took was a janitor, a bottle of bubbles, and a little girl who needed someone to see her.